Hi everyone, Bitcoin here from
The Big Chabowski Empire.
this round. I'm up against Barca 49k, the opponent who has been in the top 20 Kyber quite a bit. Now I didn't have time to voice record, so I just recorded the fights themselves and then did this afterwards as I did have the time and space to do it. It's a round I was looking forward to a fair bit because this is a pretty challenging opponent compared to some of the others that I have seen. So Baka has a pretty high lifetime score here, as you can see, and like I mentioned, has been in the top 20 Kyber pretty frequently. Now, one thing that's pretty noticeable about his roster is that his General Skywalker is just Relic 4, and then alongside that he has a bunch of Gear 12 clones, some with Zeta, some without. And the relics that he doesn't have over there are basically put into a CLS counter to General Skywalker. Though the modding on those specific characters is not entirely quite there. But so far historically it seems like usually he's able to pull it off, sometimes barely. And for the rest he doesn't really have many different characters for me. Also has a Relic 7 Spirit, geared up his resistance a little early, but nothing noticeable there. Does have very good speeds across this roster, so this was definitely going to be a very interesting match. Also has a Nest who is very fast, one of his fastest characters. So let's go take a look at what exactly he did with his defense. So Baka already attacked and he actually one-shot my board, which is something that I did not expect because his General Skywalker, I did not think it was going to be strong enough to be able to... his CLS, I didn't think it was going to be strong enough to be able to one-shot my very defensive General Skywalker. People have done it with a lot better modding and still failed, so I was a bit skeptical there, but he managed to pull through. And then on the other hand here, he fought my Darth Revan and my Grievous, and the Grievous team he took down potentially using Padme, potentially using... at this point I was thinking, yeah, he might have used his JKR maybe, but JKR wouldn't be able to pull it off because he was missing the Bastilla Zeta on the lead, and for the rest they were just a bunch of Gear 12s, other than Jolie, so I didn't really think he would be able to pull through that, but he managed to one-shot everything. I was not surprised about the other teams, obviously, because they're not that strong. But then if I look at his defense, he has a Darth Revan team here without Bastilla Fallen, where he put Thrawn in as a 5th. And then he has a Django Nest team that's pretty speedy as well. And then at the top over here he has a Ridge training team, a Night Sister team as well with a Relic 7 Spirit, and then a pretty weak Grievous team over there as well. So that was his defense, and it really made me wonder, like, what exactly did he do then to be able to beat all of my teams? He obviously kept his General Skywalker for offense. And here I was looking into the speeds on the Bosk team, or the Django team rather, to see what I would need to be able to do against it. Now, I was obviously going to use Rey Jedi Training here, as it's a really nice counter. It's pretty hard to lose that one. The only tricky thing is that if you don't land a lot of exposes in the beginning with R2, then that can really get your team damaged quite a lot. So I just went with this standard team that's beaten even fully relics teams before, but it's really very much about that initial expose that you need to get from R2-D2. Now, I was looking into other options for a little bit because there are obviously other things people run like Resistance Trooper, etc. But I like the extra speed boost from T3, I like the turn meter reduction, the debuff so that they don't hit as hard. So I decided to get started with that battle because depending on how many banners I would score here, as it was really going to be a banner match, that would determine what I would do next. And as you can see, I only landed 2 exposes here, which is pretty lame. That's really not good enough. Also, no debuffs on Bosk there whatsoever. So this already put a lot of pressure on my team here. I decided to reduce their turn meter here a little bit, if that was going to land at all, and then hopefully sometime soon get back in control. So usually what you want to do is try to control Bosk before he gets the taunt off. And here I finally managed to land some tenacity down, but with R2 not getting a turn anytime soon, I figured I just need to start using all of the debuffs I had available, like Finn's offense down didn't land there. And the moment Bosk starts taunting, you just pretty much don't have a choice and have to go for him. So their team is really like quite firmly in control so far, just because R2 is not landing those debuffs yet. And while the fight looks really dicey here at this point, it's really not. There's still not a whole lot that they can do to be able to overtake my team. I'm getting closer and closer to the Illuminated Destiny here. I did lose Finn there. And then you have to be a little bit careful about who exactly you put the smokescreen on. But the moment the Illuminated Destiny goes off and you finally land some exposes, whereas the rest of the team didn't do it, then you're so firmly in control that there's nothing they can do. Like right now, I've got exposes on 3 people, and that's already such a stronger position than the 2 I previously had, especially because Bosk didn't have one, and he's the one you really wanted to initially stop from taunting. So now I'm just trying to figure out how can I salvage as many banners as possible here. You don't want to go after Embo, because Embo has that crit hit immunity in his kit, so there's not much of a point in trying to expose him. And from here on out, it's just a matter of picking them off. Nest I didn't have any risk of timing out on because it was a fast nest. So for territory war purposes, you can really punch way above your weight with Rage Jedi training. Even in a worst case scenario like this, where you land very few exposes, you can still get the job done just fine. Though I did lose a character here, but in Grand Arena, it's pretty ugly for banners if you get that initial bad luck and you don't land the exposes that you need to. So this ate into my banners pretty deeply, and I knew that in order to beat him, I would have to average 57 banners. And I just lost quite a lot of the ones that I could lose over here in his first fight, as I only got 50. So that was pretty lame, but I knew the risks of that happening, and this was really the best possible choice for me to be able to take that team on. But yeah, that's the risk of the RNG that you might have in such fights. So next up, I wanted to obviously take down Darth Revan, as that was the next team in line here to be able to see the back zone and to see what exactly he put on defense. Now for Darth Revan, I have several options. I obviously have my Padme that I could use here, though Relic 7 Malak can be really dicey. Having Thrawn in there is pretty tricky as well. So that made it a less attractive option for me. I could have also used my Jedi Knight Revan, as Jedi Knight Revan can obviously gradually pick them off, especially without Bastilla Fallen there. But again, not my first choice. My first choice is actually a different team, something that I don't really use that often on offense, and which you could see wasn't on my defense. But in this case, I decided to use my Night Sisters up against his Darth Revan. You heard that correctly. You're probably not going to see that particularly often, but it's a matchup that I really enjoy doing, and something that not a lot of people expect or have modded for, etc. So this is what I went with Talzin lead, so that in the case that it doesn't go entirely the way you want, you can still revive. But as you can see here, Darth Revan is right out in the open. There's nobody protecting him. I didn't want to hit him just yet so that I wouldn't feed him any more speed. So I decided to start by hitting HK, and Thrawn actually, because I could stun him. Now HK is the only one who can AoE here and strip a lot of banners. So after taking out Darth Revan, HK became my next target, and I immediately stunned him with our Darth Revan there to stop those stuns. And from there on out, it was just a matter of controlling the field and gradually picking them off one by one. Here HK is obviously stunned, so he was not a threat, but Marauder was, so I picked him off as well. And then it was a matter of taking out Thrawn next before he could get any kind of turn meter swaps in. And then I would still get AoE'd, because the AoE alone here could cost me a lot of banners. If my zombie gets hit and loses health and protection, that's not a big deal, but one AoE strips 4 additional banners, which would be pretty unfortunate. So here it becomes a little bit trickier, as I have to attack Malak as well due to me getting feared. And then I do still want to take out HK there before he manages to get his attack in. So I managed to stun him again, because I do have really good potency under Talzin lead. That's another reason to bring her. And this is where they actually get their first attack in on my zombie. But at that point, it's really just Malak left, and I only need to pick him off and keep stunning him here. So this made for a pretty easy fight, and it did a fair bit better than the worst case scenario that I had calculated for, which was about 53 banners. So I got 5 more than I anticipated there, and that put me in Bronzium. So then I got to see his back zone, and I was actually really surprised over there, because in the back zone he put his Jedi Knight Revan and his Kylo Ren Unmasked. And what this meant, and also his Watt under Kylo, what this meant was that he didn't have his Jedi Knight Revan for offense. So in the defense that I've been setting for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've actually been sort of saving up to face a person like him, he would not have been able to clear both of the front walls on my usual defense with the things that he kept for himself for offense. So I thought it was going to be a super interesting match, but what actually ended up happening was him using his CLS on my General Skywalker, then he used his Padme on my Darth Revan, and then up against the Grievous team, I'm trying to think which team I'm missing. He used his General Skywalker, the undergeared one, but if I would have also had my Night Sister team on defense in the front wall, then he would not have been able to clear both my front walls. Now I talked with him a little bit, and he told me that he would have used Traya together with his Sith Trooper and with his Bastilla Fallen, but the problem there is that my Spirit would have either one-shot someone immediately, or would have dropped someone under half health, and then Talzin would have done an AoE, plagued everyone, Traya wouldn't have been able to cleanse the debuffs, and that would have been game over for him with a turn meter train going and Talzin removing turn meter as well. So to me that didn't really make any sense, and it just feels like instead of this being a really interesting match, he just got extremely lucky with me doing something different and that working out perfectly for him. So that was quite a bummer for me, and I knew at this point I wasn't going to win this match based on banners, just because I had so many tougher battles left to fight here, and for him things worked out perfectly. So I was still going to try, but did not have particularly high expectations of it. So I figured I should use my Padme up against his Night Sisters, and up against Grievous I was going to try out this Traya team with Old Ben in there instead of Dooku. Something funny I've been wanting to try for a while. It's a little bit risky, but at this point it didn't really matter. I didn't quite expect that I was going to be able to win. So for this counter, what you want to do is turn meter swap to Old Ben, and then basically hope that either his turn meter removal works or his ability block works, because the turn meter removal does not have a 100% chance. If it did, then this would be an amazing counter, like a very consistent one, but it doesn't. So here I remove the turn meter, and I do actually remove it on almost everyone and land a few ability blocks, so that worked nicely for me. And then the goal is to try to fracture Grievous as quickly as possible before filling up his turn meter again from B2 doing AoEs. So as you can hear there, it's a somewhat risky approach. Grievous is ability blocked here, but imagine if he's not and he's about to get an AoE in, that could get pretty risky. But here I managed to fracture him, and then it's a matter of buying time until Nihilus gets to annihilate. But obviously I'll be triggering B2 a fair bit in the meantime. I did use the taunt here, not really for the taunt, but just for the defense up, so that I wouldn't lose as much health and protection across the board, as Old Ben takes so few turns and he's not really going to drop that buff immunity, and even if he does, then B2 will just dispel his taunt, etc. So I figured I'd just use it there and keep going. Now Nihilus is almost at the annihilate here, and Scion has his held by hatred up, so I'm in a pretty comfortable spot. B1 is starting to look pretty low on his stacks, and I have to be careful there that I don't drop all of the stacks. So I'm thinking here, who gets to take a turn first, because if Grievous drops a fracture and then B1 dies, then I'm in big trouble. So I did not want that to happen. But now B1 did die, and that cost me an incredible amount of banners, and at this point I knew I had lost the match. I was really in control up until now, and I could have recovered all of my protection banners, but he just got really lucky with how the turn meter lined up for those characters. So that killed B1 at the wrong time, and unfortunately cost me 2 of my characters here. So I do still manage to beat the rest, which is nice, but the banners are pretty ugly. And it's quite a pity because it was a bit of a risky match that I wanted to try out, and then to lose when you're so far in and actually firmly in control is pretty disappointing. But fun to do nonetheless, something different for once, and Old Ben got an interesting use here. So now it's just a matter of picking them off. There's like a tiny hope to recover some protection on Scion, but usually Magna will end up countering, or Droidica will hit me and I will just lose it right away again. So I knew that that one banner wasn't going to make the difference anymore. With the banners that he scored, there was just no chance for me to be able to beat him still, and the banners are already lost because this is going to be another 50-ish, I believe, 51, yeah. So that's practically 20 banners already lost, and I had just about that much wiggle room, let's say 15 maybe. So that didn't really matter anymore, and from here on out, I just kind of figured, okay, I'm just going to try to clear the board and get as much as possible and call it a day. I was pretty busy this weekend, so I just didn't have a whole lot of time, and this entire Grand Arena is a little bit rushed. As you'll see later on, I think in one of the fights, which could have gone a fair bit better. But yeah, Night Sisters up against this kind of, Padme up against this kind of Night Sister team, you know that with Relic 7 Spirit in there, someone is going to get dropped to under half health in the opener, very likely, and in this case that also happened with Ahsoka, and that immediately fills up Mother Talzin's turn meter, but also Jedi Knight Anakin's. So Jedi Knight Anakin gets to do his AoE here, and thanks to Padme, Jedi Knight Anakin's Zeta, Padme also takes a turn, and then you're back and healthy. And then normally see Mother Talzin's AoE doesn't hurt you, but in this case Asajj won the coin flip, and they did still land the Plague, which is a bit unfortunate for me, but it's no showstopper. And from there on out, it's just a matter of trying to build up courage at some point if Asajj doesn't take it from you, and getting those early kills in there so that you can begin to build up the so that you can get the DACA after the other ones have been picked off. So that's what I was trying to do here, just get through the fight and then maybe stall a little bit in the end with Shaq's heal, so that you can try to recover some protection banners. It's not so easy because it doesn't come around very often, but it's an option that you can try out to do it for at least a few people. Now, you do have to make a choice there. Who do you want to leave last along with Zombie? It cannot be DACA because she will revive people. It cannot be Asajj because she dispels all of your buffs all the time, and one AoE could cost you all of your protection banners. It shouldn't be Spirit because one hit from her strips far too much health and protection, just way more than you can recover. So the only logical choice is Mother Talzin, and as long as you're able to maintain your protection up, then her AoEs don't really do anything, or at least nothing that you can recover from, and her basic and her special don't do enough damage either. So here is trying to set that up, get rid of Asajj, and she's taken a while to go down there, and then just have Zombie and Mother Talzin left. As you can see here, that group attack doesn't really do anything, and then it's just a matter of farming Zombie to be able to get your protection banners back. But of course, that takes quite a bit of time. I do still have 2.5 minutes on the clock or so, and I have full health and protection on 3 characters here, so Shaq, Padme, and Jedi Knight Anakin. But in order to heal someone back to full protection, you just need to get quite a lot of Shaq specials in. It's like 2 or 3 per character. And the issue is also that I made a mistake of putting Retribution up, which makes everyone counter on Mother Talzin. So that stops that from working anyways. But this is something that I would really only recommend doing if it's an absolute banner fight, where every banner counts against your opponent. If that's not the case, then I wouldn't bother and draw it out too much and just post it. But it's an option for those who are interested in trying to squeeze out every possible banner. I wasn't at this point, obviously. So then I did the Jedi Knight Revan mirror match. Just trying to figure out if I wanted to go undersized or not, because it's a little bit more challenging, but I figured I'd just throw in all 5. Also because there's a feat, it's interesting to undersize. But I figured I'd just go with these guys and get this one done. Now, a lot of people like to go for Grandmaster Yoda first, but this is how I actually prefer to do my Jedi Knight Revan mirror matches back in the day. That when you're able to and you're faster, you just go directly for Jedi Knight Revan, because once he direct focuses everyone, it feeds turn meter to Grandmaster Yoda, it focuses a lot of damage on a single character, and I just liked to pick him off very quickly, reduce his cooldown so that he can't get a direct focus in, and then after that start going for Jolee. And this is of course in a time that there is no GK in there, which of course used to be the case when the meta was around back then, for most people anyway. So going directly for JKR can be really interesting now that GK is not there anymore, because you can just mitigate a lot of damage and really stay in control of the fight, as you don't get one character that gets their cooldowns reduced and that gets really focused down and isn't able to contribute to the team. Like if it's Bastilla, you can share the buffs. If it's Jolee, you can do the assist call and he's actually the guy you don't want to die. Hermit Yoda is always stealthed, and your own JKR, if he's the target, that's pretty annoying too. So I actually prefer it this way, and it works out very well. I just have to dispose of Jedi Knight Revan a second time. And it's tempting to start going for Jolee again, but again, I wanted to have Jedi Knight Revan down, not on the field, not bothering me. And now it's just a matter of picking off Jolee and then going for the others and making sure that I have all of my protection banners. But that's really no kind of challenge. So it's funny because everyone remembers Jedi Knight Revan mirror matches as this absolute nightmare, but that was mostly in the days of GK being there, and nowadays it's really not so bad. If you know how exactly to play it. So here I just need a little bit of protection on my Bastilla, but she ends back up at full. So that wasn't actually any kind of problem. Now moving on then, there were two teams left to go. There was the First Order together with Watt, and then there was the Resistance team. Now I figured that with the teams that I had left, my own EP and my CLS, I was actually pretty limited in choices here, because EP up against First Order with Watt is not going to do anything unless you have Nihilus there, but I didn't because I already used him. And CLS can get the job done, but it's difficult with Watt there, but it would have been an option. Now again, if my opponent would have had to face my Night Sisters in my defense, then this would not have been an issue at all, because I wouldn't even have had to clear his back zone, as he wouldn't have been able to get through half of my map. So this was really a situational kind of thing where it didn't really matter what exactly he put on defense. But I had to figure out, okay, I guess I'll have to try out my EP up against his Rey Jedi training team, just to try to be able to full clear him, if I wanted to end up with some more banners. But that ended up being the choice that I made. So going up with EP against Rey Jedi training, it's a bit tricky. My Vader is very fast, and he was going to have a good shot at going first here and getting in control of the match. But yeah, it really depends on what kind of buffs and debuffs are landed. I could have brought my Nest as well, but I figured Nest might end up being helpful in case I had to do some kind of cleanup or something like that. If Nest is just in there along with these guys and she's very slow and tenacious, then by the time she kicks into action, it's a little bit late. So I figured I would just try to do it here with a full Empire team, especially for the speed for Vader, as he would be able to outrun their Rey Jedi training still, I figured. Pretty sure I did the math on that one. So I ended up going with these 5, some of them a bit squishy, not all of them as useful, but I figured this would be the best choice. I couldn't really try Troopers because there wasn't any weak spots, and I could have tried to make some kind of team with Newt, Dooku, and Nest, but I'm not a huge fan of that if they don't have the speed advantage in the beginning. So I went with this, and Rey Jedi training did actually speed up enough there to go after BB-8, and that pretty much shut me down immediately. I really did figure Vader would be faster, because mine has roughly 250 speed, then plus the 56 that he gets puts him right behind their BB-8, who only gets a turn meter boost from himself, and the Rey Jedi training was about 260 speed, so it was a bit surprising to see her go that much higher, and I just went out of the battle here and decided, okay, if I want to get to his ships, then I'm just going to have to send in CLS together with C-3PO here, to be able to still get through the team, get the fleets, and get more banners. I didn't have high hopes for the team, but I did think I would be able to get some more attacks and control in, but that didn't quite work out. I didn't have a proper fifth for the CLS team. I figured I could bring something that could hit from stealth or maybe another rebel, but there wasn't really a great choice here, and I actually ended up settling, I believe, for L3 as a tank. But then in hindsight, it would have been nicer to keep L3 together with Vandor up against the First Order team. That was a mistake that I made there in the end, just in a rush to try to finish this and get it over with. But I don't really think that the L3 Vandor Nest thing would have been able to get through First Order with Watt, just because there's too much protection and regeneration. But yeah, I won't know for sure now. So when you use CLS up against Rage Edit Training, you obviously go for BB-8 first, as he gets their turn meter train going. And then after that, you just want to pick him off as quickly as possible. And from there on out, it's pretty simple. You can go for Rage Edit Training immediately. You can stop their tank, or if R2 is there, you can try to stop him from stealthing everyone. But this is not a particularly challenging match. So I could have gone with this immediately to have some more banners, but I figured the chance of trying to clear the full map was worth those 20 banners that I was going to lose for a second attempt. So yeah, this was not particularly difficult. So then finally, in the end, there was the First Order Watt team left, and I knew that with what I had, I wasn't really going to stand a chance. But I figured I'd give it a shot anyway and see how exactly I would end up doing against that with Nest. But I knew that with Kylo Ren on Masks, 2-turn stun, that's irresistible. It doesn't matter how much tenacity you have on Nest. It doesn't really matter what you do. You simply get stuck on them. So I just threw in a couple characters, realized that having L3 would be really nice here, which I obviously didn't. Death Trooper doesn't add much because you need to get a kill for that first. And I'm just going to be stuck on Kylo Ren Unmasked for pretty much the entire fight. And other than that, there aren't a whole lot of great choices. Acolyte can attack from stealth, but like the damage doesn't really do a whole lot. Leia can fill the same role, so I think I actually ended up going with her. But there weren't really any other characters that added a whole lot. Like, could have thrown in Ezra, could have put in Baze or something, or Chirrut, but they weren't really going to do the job. Even if I would have had L3 here, I just don't think they would be capable of doing it at my gear levels anyway. So I ended up going with that. Maybe Nest would have been able to, if L3 would stay alive for long enough, which I doubt, then Nest would have been able to build up enough offense to take out a few characters after maybe 4 minutes of fighting or something like that. But her exposes as well heal them up under Kylo Ren Unmasked lead. So that's really not as easy as it sounds. But yeah, there was really not much I could do here up against him. So I'll just fast forward here through the rest, as there's not much else to say. It's just trying to hammer him, and then instead of backing out, just seeing how many dots are they going to stack up on Nest, which ended up being quite a bit. But yeah, this match was not as exciting as I had hoped. I feel like my opponent just kind of lucked out, and I was really hoping that it would be something a lot more interesting. But at least I enjoyed the Night Sisters up against Darth Revan stuff, so that was pretty good. Yeah, hope to see you back for the final round, and good luck with your Grand Arenas.